This is Independent Voice. I am manmade. Part 5 of Mr. Fouad's biography continues. Welcome if you are new, and thank you for joining us.
You had asked the question, and so how about you? How did you survive your own various layers of trauma? At some point, the lack that we people have is that we're in Western setups where this kind of assistance are automatic almost. Here you have a small incident, a car, two cars accident. Immediately you have all the medical, but also psychologists around you, not only for the people who were involved in the accident, but also their parents, their sisters, their siblings, and everything, Yeah, because it is a trauma for those people. Later alone, when they have a suicide bomb here in France, that's the whole population that goes to the psychology, So for us, when we were working in this kind of context, coming back from a mission, we are proposed a whole set of either psychologists or psychiatrists as we wish. It's not imposed. But they give you the list and they say, if you need to go. Me, I never refused. Because I know in our context in Africa, psychological assistance is almost intrinsic to our society, because the son or the daughter is the son and daughter of all the neighbor, all the uncles and the aunties and everyone. So yeah, it heals by itself there, If Papa is too busy, Mama is too busy, or they cannot handle it, the auntie will come, and even the gorobet will come, the neighbor, and support. It's almost intrinsic. So we don't value much the psychological part. And even today, if you go to any African country, the level of studies of psychology or psychiatry is less, much less than any other studies. You see? And I even remember in my time, if you say I'm going to see a psychologist, they say, oh, but he's crazy. You could be targeted to something else, Me, no, I automatically adopted it, and it was helpful, to be frank. The simple fact that you can talk about it is already a relief. It's something that you put inside time and again, and it piles up that one day would explode.
Yes. And
then you can be really mad, or you commit suicide, or you hate the whole world, or I don't know, And to avoid that, we need to adopt this kind of approaches, because imagine today with what happened in Ethiopia, the mother who lost 4 of her kids that she sent to the war. What is left for her to live?
Exactly.
That mother needs assistance, not only financial, not only care, love, she needs psychological assistance. You see? And I'm not stigmatizing anyone, nor the Ethiopians, nor the Palestinians, nor anyone, no. It's the experience through which I went that taught me this. You see? In Rwanda, after the genocide, what they did, they had to do it, this Gashasha, and they sat down, and the killer was there, and the people who lost their kids were there, and they discussed, and maybe sometimes there were some violences during that process, some were killed, etc. Okay, but you have to go through that. That's the first healing part. And it shouldn't stop there. After that, there is a psychological assistance that still is required.
Yes.
With other helps, of course. It cannot be isolated. No, it should be a package. So voila, that was a bit of the journey in Palestine, Israel. One thing interesting in that is that when we were doing this advocacy job, after all this empirical experience and concrete project setups, we were also doing advocacy, but starting within the Israeli community. And the first experiences were very hard because we interacted with some Israeli NGOs who were open to the idea, but then we organized conferences where it was open. We even did it in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, for example, and the discussions were hard.
I'll bet. Yeah.
Very hard. I'm not going into the details because, it's an old story and I don't want any interpretations. I am neutral in all this because I hate violence. I hate what's happening, to see what's happening, etc. But I'm not judging. I judge history. I judge the intelligence of people as a whole, but being on one side or the other is not my job. That's not the case, So, but the exchanges, what you could notice, some are in denial, in total denial. As if what you're talking about is rubbish, and yet it's empirical, it's scientific, because we don't talk. We have scientific data about the medical care that we were providing, but also psychological care that we were providing. It was evidence-based, but people are in denial. Why? Because there is also, on the other hand, propaganda.
True.
You see? True. And sometimes it was sad because some people who are genuine from within the Israeli community will just burst in tears because they realize how far this war was going, how far people were suffering. You see? Yeah. Just to finish on this paragraph of Palestine, Israel, I'll give you just one anecdote, we were international. And so I was based in Jerusalem and going in and out Gaza and West Bank, okay? In Gaza, we have a checkpoint. It's called Erez, and it was one of the toughest checkpoints that consumes a lot of time because they check everything when you go in, but check everything when you go out, etc. It's horrible, okay? And yet, for internationals, it's a little bit lighter, If you are local, forget it. You can go through the whole day. So I was in Gaza, and there were some destruction of houses in the southern part. And we had provided shelters, tents, to people, food and medical assistance, psychological assistance, and we were there with them. So when I come, it's the boss coming, So they're happy, and it was this family. Well, I will not say the name, but it's this family and the dad, very tired and really thinking of so many things in his mind. And his kids are there, his wife is there, and they had prepared tea for me. Okay? So I sat, and we were drinking and we were talking. And he asks the kid to leave and to go and play. And he approaches me and he says, can I ask you for a favor? And I said, it depends. Yeah, of course you can. He said, when are you going back to Israel? And I said, tomorrow. He said, I have this envelope. Can you hand it to a person I know the other side? And I said, well, I have to open the envelope because, the checking. I don't know, it's open. And he showed me, it's a letter that he wrote, And the other side, the person to whom he's sending is a Jewish person, an Israeli. And this guy used to work with him before. Mm-hmm. There were times that people could go from Gaza, work, and come back, Mm-hmm. And they were very close. Mm-hmm. Imagine, huh? And he didn't see him for many years because of this blockade and war and absurd situation. And in that letter, he was just greeting him and saying that he missed him and giving him news about the kids and asking news about his kids, the other one, etc. And that's it. Right? So when I got out from Gaza, normally I go through the highway, The place where this guy is living is inland. Mm. So I just took off the highway and went to that place. And the place is called Rehovot. Mm. It's one city of Israel. So I was looking for the address. And first, what happened is that I stopped the car and trying to find someone to speak to. And first, this is the first part that I'm telling you. Then there is the second part, which is more interesting. But this one also is tremendous. I get out of the car, and while I was looking for a person, I see a landscape which attracted my eyes, and it was a teff plantation.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I went and touched it, and it was teff. Teff doesn't grow anywhere else. So all of a sudden, while I was completely amazed and mesmerized, there is this old man that comes out from the landscape, and he looks at me and he says, and he's Ethiopian actually.
Oh, wow.
And he has a gabi, Says, are you Ethiopian? And I said, yes. That's why you're wondering. This is my plantation. He says, it's good that you stopped. I said, no, I didn't stop for this. I was going somewhere. I'm looking for someone. He said, no, but first, come. And we took my car and he took me inside, and he had his house there, and he does the teff. Mm-hmm. He does prepare it. And in the warehouse, they have this mitad, electric mitad, the crepe making electric machine. And I said, what is this? He said, that is my business. So that was not my trip, but I discovered it. So I bought one electrical mitad. I bought the teff, kuntal. And they invited me shahi and tea and things like that. And I asked him, do you know this person? He said, yeah, you go to the city, because he was outskirts, the city. It's on the main road, and you ask when you arrive there. Okay, and that was the encounter I made for the Ethiopian part. I went to Rehovot city and found very easily the house. to where I was going, actually. And I went to knock the door. So they don't open. They have this small thing. Mm-hmm. They look at me and they are afraid already because I don't look like a white man. I even look like an Arab a little bit, you know. So a little bit of shouting and said, no worries. I had something for you, but I can go. And I just went slowly to my car. I didn't want to create any problem because they can call the police and you have problem, you know. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know what happened. While I was near the car, he opened the door and yelled at me and he said, what do you want to do? What the hell are you doing here? I said, no. I'm working for this organization. On the car, we have the logo, you know. Mm-hmm. And I have a message from Gaza. All of a sudden, his face and everything calmed down, you know. And then he said, I got into the house. His wife came. They are old, you know. And they said, who is it? And I said, it is X. Both of them start crying. How is he? How are the kids? And I said, he wrote you this. And there were 2 pictures also that he put in there. And here is the picture. The wife, she took the pictures and started crying, you know. She put it here on her lap. And me, I thought I was in a dream, you know, because they hate each other, you know, the 2 communities. Mm-hmm. And seeing the other one talking to me, you know, in my ears, and this one crying like this, I said, what kind of absurd life are we in? Mm-hmm. You see? Mm-hmm. And so I drank my tea and I said, you know, I still have to go to Jerusalem, etc. They said, no, it's okay. When are you going back again there? Said in a week time or maybe 3 days, you know. Said, okay, please, can you come here? Can you go through us? And I said, you know, if you want to send something, Erez is a complicated checkpoint. It should be small things. Don't worry, we're not going. 4 days later, I go back. I called them before. And when I reached there, they again entered the house. So they had prepared a whole lot of money for the family, small gifts for the kids, gold for the mom, a watch for the papa. They said, is this too much? I was in tears, you see? And I said, no, it's not too much. Said, so you know each other this much? He said, he was my brother. Mm-hmm. So why is this war going on? Said, don't ask me this question. And that's the experience I had. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to finish on this note with the Palestinian and Israeli issue, because whatever I told you before is already horrible. But when you have this kind of experience throughout all that violence and turmoil and absurdity, humanity still exists. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's just systems that are separating these people. So at the end of the day, you ask yourself, why all this then? What is the purpose? Where is it leading? And why is it this long? If there were people like this by the 1,000, by the million, this war would have stopped a long time ago. Mm-hmm. You see? And this, I'm sure you find it between Tigrayans and Amharas. You find it between Tigrayans and Oromo. You can find it between Somalis. You can find it between Hutu and Tutsi. Wherever you go, it's not the people that want all this. It's other interests that are up there, whether it is greed, whether it is power seeking, whether it is geopolitical and self-interest, but it's not about the population.
It's not. It's not.
Voilà.
It isn't. It's actually under the premise of caring for one's community or for one's people. What's happening is you're creating or you're putting together the demise for somebody else. Those are people too.
Yeah.
But the premise is not necessarily blatantly saying or said, because we don't like that other one and we like this one. The premise most of the time is, oh, we care for our people. But who's my people? Under that umbrella of caring for my community, my people, I create something or I work towards the demise of some other people. I think the example you brought up is an incredible example to show what is also happening in our own world, in our own Africa. I have no doubt that story you just told can be replicated so many different ways.
Everywhere.
So many different ways. In real life, it's not even because somebody is telling this other story. In real life, completely removed from Africa. The example you just witnessed probably happens in Ethiopia as we speak, because people lived together. When we started this interview, you talked about brothers against brothers, right? And because people were together, whether they were friends, whether they were related, whether they lived together in a community, we're talking about a person against a person. If you removed the language piece, if you removed the culture piece, if you removed all of that, what makes us come together is the fact that we all are humans.
Yeah.
But people use language, people use culture, people use ethnicity and race, political ideology, under the premise of, oh, we care for our people. But then as you're claiming that you're protecting somebody here, you're destroying somebody else over there. So that theory to me is a false theory. It just does not work.
Absolutely.
Because you cannot protect a group of people here by saying, but I'm going to destroy that other group.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And as you put it rightly, we've seen it, and we will see it now again, but we've seen it when the initial war between Eritrea and Ethiopia had broke out in 1998. When the regime, the EPRDF, chased the Eritreans from Ethiopia. Many Ethiopians were so careful for those people who were leaving, even signing contracts between them to handle their goods. One day they will come back, you will retrieve, etc. And there was care, even if there were also on the other side people who did wrong. Of course, because in any society you have bad and good, and some have stolen, some have profited, etc. But the majority were shocked and were helping these people who were leaving the country by force. You see? So in any case, this was so to touch on few missions. There were many, and I will finish talking about missions by the last one I'm gonna tell you about is when I decided that enough was enough with the humanitarian intervention, because the majority of my work for a long time was to intervene in the aftermath of a clash within a society, or natural catastrophe, or earthquake, or things like that. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the last mission I was in was the dismantling of Libya. Mm. I could talk about Syria, I could talk about Iraq, I could talk about Haiti, etc. But just to shorten a little bit our long discussion, the one that made me decide to stop was when I went to open the mission in Libya when the war started, and we had to be in Libya. There were no more flights. Mm. So we had to go to Egypt, then Alexandria, find the cars, rented cars, and get by road. Okay. And it was in the middle of the war. Wow. In the middle of the war, Gaddafi was still there. Scouts were going everywhere. And, you know, when you go to such missions, you start learning to evaluate the context, even with your ears, you know, with what you see, with how people are moving, because when you are novice, when you are new, you can really be trapped, you know. So when we reached Benghazi, many people have left already. Okay. And those who leave first are the foreigners. It's not their battle. That's true. You see? And for a country like Libya, which was very rich, petrol and gas and everything, there were many people who came to make money. And us as medical people, the first evaluation that you do are the health centers, the hospitals, and things like that. And you go into a hospital or a health center, you come out running out of it. Why? Because most of the foreigners were those people who were taking care of the hospital or the health center, because the nurses, the scrub nurses, the cleaner of the lab, the this and that, those who were taking care of the sick, and all these people were foreigners, Filipino, Egyptian, and things. Boom! They left the country. So it's a collapse of a system. When the war is ongoing and you see on CNN, boom, 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 this part they don't show you. Yep. You see? I would have gone and showed this part that is collapsing with all the patients inside and dying on their beds. See? If it was not for students of medical school and everything that were mobilized and trying their best, and then on top of that, us coming and then ordering whatever it takes, etc., to bring it by boat because there is no more plane. So that was the first thing. And then we went a little bit further towards the front line, and it was impossible to operate there because it's not only a conventional war, a war between two entities that were battling. There was hatred. There was instrumentalization as well, because that war, there were also international interests in there.
Mm-hmm. Naturally.
You know? Exactly. And this one obviously was triggered by some people, France and America and things like that, people who are known, that triggered the whole thing. If we really had to talk about what was revealed after that, it will take too long, but many realities came out later.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But us, we lived it on the ground.
Yep.
You see? Mm-hmm. So we pulled out from that front line, came back to Benghazi, and the city in that very peak of the war that was completely encircled and occupied was Misrata, you know. Mm-hmm. The rest you could access from Tunis or from Egypt, or, you know, but that one, it's a rebel kind of city. Many rich people, like our Urage people, you know, they are the ones, business people. These are the Misrata people, are the business people. Mm-hmm. They have money and things like that, but they are rebellious. So it was encircled. And when we wanted to go there, they were at their 80th day of encirclement. Mm. So their provisions, they were trying to get it through the ingenuity of their businessmen who were trying to get boats and bring things from Malta, which mm-hmm. is just a few miles away. And voilà, that's how the provision was made. But they were taking huge risk. Mm-hmm. Because in that war, it was not only Libyans that were fighting. NATO was involved.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And NATO boats were in the sea. Mm. Okay. And us from Benghazi, we had to come to Misrata by renting also a boat.
Wow.
Okay. But the entrance towards the port of Misrata was all mined, because there is also mine on water.
Oh.
Like the mines that mm-hmm. killed the Somali women,
mm-hmm.
there are also floating bombs.
Wow.
So for us, okay, we could communicate with all parties. So the NATO would guide us, you know, don't take that route, don't take this, But this businessmen, how would they know, you know, mm-hmm. to navigate all that? Because mm-hmm. it's not one bomb, you know, it's spread. Mm. Yeah. So we got in those conditions, we got towards Misrata. Okay. At some point, the captain said, I'm not going further than this. Okay. So we had some medical items, you know, on top of the few people that we were. So we unloaded them in the small boat, you know, that you can.
Oh, wow. Like a raft?
Yeah, like a raft. And so we unloaded the things, and we did twice, you know, the thing. People that we had contacted with satellite phones, etc., were waiting for us. We unloaded everything. The big boat left. And we loaded our things in the pickups that were prepared for us. And there were already then some sub-Saharan Africans around, refugees. Mm-hmm. and waiting for boats to leave, but the war came and they don't know where to go. And we had noticed that, and we had taken notes, saying, okay, we have also to think about these ones, etc. We were just arriving. So we left to go to the city. I swear to God, 5 minutes later, where we were, a Scud exploded.
Oh, wow.
So imagine if we were 5 minutes delayed, gone.
Wow.
Gone with the winds, as they say. So when you reach that level of risk-taking, etc., that's when you start thinking. I have done this for many decades. After this, can I continue even, You start really questioning. Not that you are fearing, because if you are fearing, you wouldn't have done it for decades.
True.
On the contrary, it was maybe passion. But yeah, decades, age also is growing, and you start also seeing many absurdities in various forms. So there is the fact that you start questioning, yes, but you start to be tired and also fed up. Fed up of the lies, fed up of whatever the media is saying. They know the underlying problems, what they are precisely, that is left for the researchers after the war, in the aftermaths, And later you see nice writings that come up explaining how, who, he, her, he. I don't like it anymore, but it's before it happens that we can prevent this,
True.
But no, it is needed, it is wanted, so it is pushed forward. Wow. And it happens, many people die, then it stops because the goal is reached. You see? When Gaddafi was being killed, we were in Misrata.
Wow.
Receiving wounded people in the hospitals that we set, including even a British journalist that had lost his leg. And voila, that was the final mission that really turned my head around, I said, but enough. All right? And now I did what I had to do, left, came back to France and resigned.
Wow.
But the other reason why is not only all these absurdities, all this instrumentalization of situations, political interests, other various type of interests, greed, seeking power, etc. All this, of course. But on top of that, of course, you have a lot of things that you analyzed throughout all this experience. Okay, I had told you when we were preparing our interview that one thing that sometimes annoys me is when all the belligerents, all the fighting parties, starting especially in the 21st century, criticizing all the international institutions of being biased and being involved in the illness of the nation in which they operate, etc., 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 etc. Of course, that exists. I will not deny it, But for people who are meant to lead a nation, to dwell on this fast conclusions it's not dignifying that country, because they have the capacity with their intellectuals of analyzing what is really happening and come up with real reason and real evidence-based criticism. Okay. The latest example I will give you is this Steve Omamo, who wrote his book after having been the head of WFP in Ethiopia during the war. Okay? He wrote all that he witnessed without sparing anyone, but including his own institution and the international community, but also the real faults with the TPLF, the government, and everything. Okay, how the whole thing was instrumentalized. That is also an international institution. Before, we have insulted everyone, but here comes one of their head writing a book that is now sold around the world. Okay. And even the title is interesting, because it says Ethiopia at the center of the world, or something like that, you know, because it was not only a war between brothers and sisters. We had become also the center of the world because everyone was involved in there. But then, after having said that, he explains who had done what, to what extent, and how. These are the right people with whom you have to talk before you criticize, you know? And why I took this example, because my experience allows me to say this.
Thanks again for joining us. This is manmade, and this is Independent Voice.